snow developing. 14 degrees will be the low temperature, and looks like that snow is going to cause some travel problems tomorrow.
Okay, Don, thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. Remember now, 5's the 1.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. Another of the men who has been a very close advisor to President Reagan is going to face a special prosecutor. Late today, the Justice Department asked that an independent counsel investigate whether Lynn Nofziger, the former White House political advisor, violated federal ethics laws. ABC's John Martin reports first on why this latest development.
The Justice Department asked for an independent investigation of 2 lobbying efforts by Nofziger within a year after he left the White House in 1982. In one, only 4 months after he resigned as Special Assistant for Political Affairs, he wrote to White House official James Jenkins asking for help for this company, WedTech of New York, which wanted an Army engine contract. The company got the contract. In a second letter, Nofziger wrote to then National Security Advisor William Clark in December 1982. Only 11 months after he left office. In it, he asked Clark's help for the Comet Rice Company, a client which wanted a special waiver of export regulations. The law bans such contacts within a year after leaving government. Nofziger's attorney, however, said he expected his client to be exonerated.
We believe that after a full, fair, and thorough investigation, the independent counsel will enter a finding that there has been no violation by Mr. Nofziger of the Ethics in Government Act.
So, along with Michael Deaver, who is still under investigation, and Attorney General Edwin Meese, who was cleared, Lynn Nofziger becomes the 3rd close personal associate of the president to face a special investigation under the Ethics in Government Act. John Martin, ABC News, Washington.
The United States and West Germany have been negotiating today on how a man accused of hijacking TWA Flight 847 might be transferred from West Germany to the United States. There is no question the Reagan administration wants it. There was also an extradition treaty between this country and West Germany. In Washington, Dennis Trout.
The newly unsealed indictments accuse 4 Lebanese in the TWA hijacking case. 3 of those indicted, including Mohammed Hamadeh, already had been named in public arrest warrants. The name of the 4th is still officially secret, but sources say it's Emmett Bagneya, said to be the mastermind of the hijacking. Washington is confident that Mohammed Hamadeh soon will be brought to justice in the U.S., but there is a hitch. The German government said today that under the terms of the extradition treaty between the 2 countries, Hamadeh should not face the death penalty for air piracy, since German law prohibits capital punishment. U.S. officials want to find a way around the treaty, but there's some indication they would give in on the death penalty question rather than lose jurisdiction. The sister of murdered U.S. sailor Robert Steedham today expressed confidence that Washington will find the right solution.
We have a lot of faith that whatever happens, it's going to be okay with us.
Some surviving hijacking victims say that if it comes to a trial, they'll furnish information.
I have a very vivid memory of their faces and their build in general. I don't think I'd have any problem whatsoever identifying them.
U.S. officials say they're certain that extradition questions with West Germany will be ironed out and that Mohammed Hamadeh will be headed to the U.S. for trial in a matter of weeks. Peter?
Dennis, we know how terrorists operate. Are there people in Washington concerned that if he comes to this country might become a target for terrorists trying to get him back again?
Peter, officials here are concerned about the possibility of retribution, but they say that should not stand in the way of any judicial process.
Okay, Dennis, thanks very much indeed. Exactly what we thought we'd hear. In other news today, the organization known as the Islamic Jihad has threatened to bring, quote, losses to everyone if Islamic nations actually hold a summit meeting in Kuwait in 10 days' time. The group has been demanding that Kuwait release 17 jailed terrorists. The new threat was accompanied by a black and white photograph of American hostage Terry Anderson. There was no indication how recently the photograph had been taken. One of the central figures in the Iran-Contra affair has been telling more of his story on Capitol Hill today to the Foreign Relations Committee. As ABC's Britt Hume reports from the Senate, the story was familiar.
The former national security advisor once more insisted, despite repeated White House denials, that the president himself approved in advance the initial arms shipment to Iran, which was sent through Israel in August of 1985. And McFarland provided some new details about the decision.
Now, he communicated that to me. And when he did, by telephone, I said to him, Mr. President, as you know, your secretaries of state and defense are opposed to this. He says, yes, I understand that, and provided his own explanation of the basis for his decision.
The White House has said all along that presidential approval of that first sale came only after the fact, that the president, in the words of Chief of Staff Reagan, tolerated it. In the meantime today, sources said the special Senate committee established to investigate the case narrowed its search for a chief counsel to 2 candidates, neither said to be a household name. Both are described as lawyers. The committee is hoping to announce its choice early next week. The same sources said the committee is hoping to get a major head start from the work already done by the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is now preparing a new summary of its investigation. That new report is said to be significantly different from the one the Intelligence Committee refused to release publicly, and a draft of which was leaked. For one thing, the new report will incorporate 12 interviews that had not even been transcribed in time for the earlier summary. For another, unless the Special Iran Committee objects, the Senate Intelligence Committee plans to release this new report publicly. Britt Hume, ABC News on Capitol Hill.
President Reagan left this afternoon for his regular weekend at Camp David. A White House spokesman said again that Mr. Reagan will not be asked to tell what he remembers about approving the arms sales to Iran, until at least his staff completes its chronology for the president to review. Then, a spokesman said, we may hear the president's recollection of it. Later in this broadcast, the number 2 man in China resigns under fire. A crisis over malpractice insurance in southern Florida, and our person of the week.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, brought to you by Subaru.
Here's Jerry with a new car. What'd you pay for it?
About $5,500.
Are you kidding?
Does it run on batteries?
What's it made of? Gray paper?
Does it have a motor? Does it have a motor?
Can I kick the tires?
Will the door come off the hinges?
Hey, guess what? It's a Subaru!
Oh, a Subaru!
Subaru!
Only one inexpensive car is built like a Subaru. Introducing the Subaru Justy. Inexpensive and built to stay that way.
Such a smart boy! Oh!
Hello, Dallas? Well, hi, Chicago. Sounds a little crazy, but we wanted to see if the new fiber optic phone line and the system being built by U.S. Sprint really were so incredibly quiet that you could actually hear a pin drop. You got it? Loud and clear. That was a pin? So call now. Find out more and save with U.S. Sprint, where every fiber optic call sounds like you're right next door.
In the South American nation of Ecuador tonight, a political and military crisis is still unfolding. The president of Ecuador, Leon Cabres Cordero, was kidnapped this morning by dissident members of the Air Force. ABC's John Quinones reports from Quito tonight that the government has agreed to one of the rebels' demands. They will release from prison an Air Force general who led a rebellion last year. In return, the president is supposed to be released. In another part of the world, the leader of the Chinese Communist Party has resigned in disgrace. He takes the fall for not being tough enough on student demonstrations in favor of more democracy. And it is a dramatic sign that liberalization in China has very precise limits, because Hu Yaobang was considered a likely successor to the man who runs China now, Deng Xiaoping. ABC's Todd Carroll is in Beijing.
For the last 7 years, Hu had been the party chief and the number 2 man in the Chinese hierarchy. But in recent weeks, there had been signs that he'd fallen out of favor with Deng and party conservatives for being too soft on dissent. Hu's demise comes after a wave of student demonstrations that began last December. The students were demanding more liberalization and more latitude for expression.
It's our duty to spread the idea of liberty or democracy. So that's our goal.
But the party has said demonstrations are harmful and called for disciplinary action against those supporting the students. And Hu Yaobang, who apparently showed too much tolerance, has become a casualty.
It's a setback brought on by the growing unrest and the agitation and excitement that unrest caused at the highest leaders of the party, particularly among conservatives.
A national television audience was told Friday night that the party chief made a self-criticism, acknowledging some unspecified mistakes on major issues. The announcement also was read on an English-language news program.
The meeting unanimously accepted Hu Yaobang's resignation.
It also named Premier Zhao Ziyang as the party's acting chief. Over the last 8 years, China has opened up to the West, importing technology and a few capitalist-style management techniques to fuel the drive toward economic modernization. That's expected to continue. But the reaction to student demonstrations makes it clear that orthodox Marxism is still dominant here. And as far as political reform goes, the line has been drawn. Even the popular and dynamic Hu Yaobang was not allowed to cross it. Todd Carroll, ABC News, Beijing.
There are no reports today of fighting in Afghanistan between Soviet forces and Afghan rebels. This is the second day on which the Soviets and the Afghan government said they would have a ceasefire. ABC's Walter Rogers is in the Afghan capital, where he tells us the Soviets are not entirely relaxed.
Soviet armored personnel carriers suddenly took up positions at key intersections in the Afghan capital today in what Western diplomats called an unusual show of strength. Armored convoys clogged the roads with no apparent explanation for the troop movement. Russian soldiers in full battle dress were dusty, as if hastily summoned from their bases outside Kabul. A heavy guard was thrown up at the Afghan television station and the Soviet embassy. Still, most Afghans went about their business accustomed to the trappings of war on their streets. The combination of public festivals on the second day of the ceasefire combined with armed troops was a bizarre mix. In Kabul, they danced. But 10 miles outside the city is a no man's land. The skies above the Afghan capital were also unusually busy with planes flying much higher or much lower to avoid guerrilla missiles, which are now reportedly knocking down one aircraft a day. And tonight, the Soviets fired flares around Kabul, again, as if they were expecting trouble. It's not clear why the Soviets were nervous today. There are no Moscow VIPs in town, no visible trouble in the Afghan government, and the guerrillas are not strong enough to invade Kabul. But if nothing else, the Soviet show of force demonstrates the Russians are still the glue that holds this city together. Walter Rogers, ABC News, Kabul.
In our next segment, the emergency room emergency in southern Florida.
My sister recommended Preparation H for my hemorrhoidal symptoms. Why should I listen to my sister? Because she's also a doctor.
In a national survey, 2 out of 3 doctors named Preparation H among the hemorrhoid remedies they recommended to their patients.
Doctors know best.
Figured you'd bring a gun. Brought something better. FTD pick-me-up bouquet. Pretty. For you. For me? Shucks. Somebody was giving the flares before.
Only from your FTD florist.
The old idea of a luxury car has changed. Chrysler Lebaron GTS. Fast, agile, luxurious. Created to outperform BMW 520AD and Mercedes 190E at a sensible price, and it does. Today's New Yorker, turbo-powered, and like every Chrysler we build, the 550 protection plan. And soon, the all-new LeBaron. Beauty with a passion for driving. Chrysler, driving to be the best.
When your child is sick, you have enough to worry about. That's why this BD digital fever thermometer is so helpful. It gives you accurate readings 4 times faster than the old glass kind. 4 times faster and safer too. No glass to break. A beep signal tells you when to read it. And the big bold numbers are easy to see. From BD, the thermometer brand doctors use most. BD takes the worry out of taking temperatures.
The government has moved one step closer today to approving the first drug shown to be at least partially effective in treating some symptoms of AIDS. The drug is called AZT, and an advisory panel today recommended that the Food and Drug Administration make AZT generally available to AIDS patients. Well, over the past year or so, we have had numerous reports on the soaring costs of medical malpractice insurance. The problem has now reached crisis proportions in southern Florida. Doctors have been refusing to staff hospital emergency rooms. ABC's Mike Von Fremd is there.
If you need emergency care in southern Florida's Dade County, you may be in trouble. Up to 22 hospitals have substantially limited their emergency facilities, and for critically injured patients, there are only 2 trauma centers operating in the area.
What's wrong with Corey? Well, they don't accept trauma patients anymore.
The cutback was brought on by the staggering cost of medical malpractice insurance. A new state law forces some physicians who service emergency rooms to carry insurance they say they simply cannot afford. Neurosurgeons and other specialists have had their rates jump 35%, and some doctors are now paying more than $170,000 a year.
If you stop and think about it, that means they've got to earn $15,000 a month, plus or minus, just to pay for their liability.
Another factor, indigent patients who don't pay their doctor's bills forced 5 trauma centers to close in the last year. And physicians launched a boycott of other emergency rooms that forced some hospitals to limit their operations.
We'll take that.
The county's Fire and Rescue Communications Center keeps track of which emergency facilities are currently available. The situation changes daily. One hospital emergency room partially reopens, another further limits its service. This is the radio transmission of a frustrated paramedic after 2 hospitals refused his patient.
Jennings, you able to accept a stable chest pain? You're the only facility, well, you're the last one left in North America.
The patient was finally accepted at county-run Jackson Memorial Hospital, which is already severely overcrowded.
And it's conceivable that we might not even be able to keep up with some patients if large numbers arrive in short periods of time. So there's a crisis in this community.
Many doctors blame the crisis on malpractice attorneys such as J.B. Spence, a highly successful lawyer who has won millions for his clients in suits against physicians. Spence counters that bad doctors are the real problem.
Many doctors are being sued 4, 5, 6, 7 times in this community, and they don't have any business practicing medicine.
I don't think I'm a bad doctor, and I've been sued 5 times.
Dr. Yates is a respected neurosurgeon who is no longer taking any emergency room work. On his wall is the Hippocratic oath he took when he first received his license.
The last paragraph of the oath says that if you practice your art and your skill, then you'll be honored throughout your life. We're not honored anymore. We are sitting ducks.
So far, the emergency medical situation has not resulted in the loss of a patient. But a worried county manager says he's on the verge of asking the federal government to send in teams of physicians to help staff the emergency rooms. Mike Von Fremd, ABC News, Miami.
Incidentally, a new ABC News program devoted to health and fitness begins tomorrow. It's called The Health Show. It is anchored by Kathleen Sullivan, and it begins at 12:30 Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Central and Pacific Time. That's tomorrow. And when we come back, no room in Texas prisons.
Back when this old tractor and I were kids, Pennzoil came in a can, and 5W30 and 10W30 motor oils didn't even exist. Now, they are recommended not only by GM, Ford, and Chrysler, but by Nissan, Toyota, and Honda for their small engines. Use Pennzoil 5W30 for winter, 10W30 for summer. For small engine protection, my old pal and I recommend it. Pennzoil, the standard of protection since 1889.
Today you have a choice in the way your coffee is decaffeinated. Some brands use chemicals like methylene chloride or ethyl acetate. But Taster's Choice does it naturally, using no chemicals. Just pure water and oil from the coffee bean itself. So when you choose Taster's Choice naturally decaffeinated coffee, you get pure, rich-tasting coffee. And absolutely nothing else.
Mom, send $500 soon, or there won't be a honeymoon.
I'm calling about your son, Jerome. That is some money. He wants to go home.
早く送ってくれないか。スピード違反でパクられた。
To send someone money fast, come to Western Union. We'll make sure it gets to any of our 10,000 locations, usually in 15 minutes or less.
Sayonara!
Western Union, the fastest way to send money.
Staying fit takes 2 kinds of exercise. Exercise for your outside and exercise for your inside with Kellogg's Bran Flakes. Kellogg's Bran Flakes are loaded with fiber to exercise your insides as only fiber can. Plus, Kellogg's is the only Bran Flakes that gives you a full day's supply of iron in each delicious bowlful. So if you plan to stay fit, don't just go halfway. Get Kellogg's Bran Flakes. They help keep you fit inside.
For the second time in 5 years, Texas prisons are not accepting any new prisoners. The problem has become common in prisons all over the country. Too many prisoners and not enough room. ABC's Charles Murphy is in Texas.
Late today, 38,414 inmates were jammed inside the Texas prison system, more than 95% of capacity. For that reason, it was being shut down.
95% still the trigger, but once we have a number of inmates that come into the system, and we don't have, at that same time, an equal number of inmates to release, we're, shutting that front door.
That complies with the federal court order issued 5 years ago to reform the Texas prison system. Second largest in the country, one of the most violent. Since then, the state built several new prisons to relieve overcrowding, but has not met other measures mandated, hiring 250 additional guards and 800 medical personnel. So Texas was cited for contempt and ordered to pay $800,000 a day beginning April 1st. This is one of the first problems facing the new governor.
The prison system and getting in compliance is a #1 priority.
With the 27 prisons closed, county jails have no place to send convicted felons, and they will quickly fill up, and some inmates will have to sleep on the floor.
It's going to create some real monstrous problems.
The prisons may reopen next week as more inmates are paroled, but solving the problem could cost Texas as much as $400 million. Charles Murphy, ABC News, Dallas.
In tonight's National Money Matters, another record day on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrials gained almost 6 more points today. Just this week, stocks have risen more than 70 points. And the volume this week topped 1 billion shares. That's the heaviest week of trading ever. Off the coast of Western Australia, it was New Zealand's turn to win. They were behind until Dennis Connor's Stars and Stripes snapped a spinnaker line and took time to struggle to recover the sail from the ocean. The Kiwis went ahead and Connor was unable to get the lead back. New Zealand won by 38 seconds. It is now 2-1 in the Challenger Series. And by the way, race number 4 can be seen live later tonight on the cable sports network ESPN. When we come back, our person of the week.
Doesn't have it. Malox Plus does. We have what you need for complete relief of excess acid, heartburn, and gas. Malox for acid and heartburn, plus simethicone for gas. Get complete relief. Try Malox Plus.
Canon's new personal copiers come in 4 colors and copy in 5.
Red's your color.
And this replaceable cartridge makes them simple, even for you.
Lighten up, Jack.
They are light. Here.
What a guy.
For information, call toll-free 1-800-OK-Canon.
Everybody needs a Yugo sometime.
I bought my Yugo because now I can afford a brand new car.
I think it's fun to drive, and it beats my old car pool.
I like the rack and pinion steering and the front wheel drive.
We wanted a dependable second car.
And this Yugo's just what we need.
The 87 Yugo GB is still only $39.90. Call 1-800-USA-YUGO for the dealer nearest you.
Everybody needs a Yugo sometime.
Mom, hi. Listen to this. Well, of course you hardly hear anything. It's my new Whirlpool dishwasher. Yes, it's on. Oh, it cleans great. Everything just cleans. And it's so quiet, we won't have to shout anymore. Mom, what's all that noise? Oh, it's your dishwasher.
We're making your world a little easier. Whirlpool.
Something new Saturdays. The concerns.
How you and your family can live a longer and healthier life.
The breakthroughs.
New advances in medicine and fitness.
The controversy.
Questions new technologies raise.
Tomorrow, learn about new drugs being tested for AIDS and the possibility of a vaccine. The Health Show with Kathleen Sullivan premieres Saturday at 12:30, 11:30 Central and Pacific on most of these stations.
And finally, this week, our person of the week. It is a woman we have chosen this week, and at the very least, she is a fighter. 5 years ago, she took time off from her job at a California Savings Association to have a baby. When she returned, some months later, the job she believed was still hers was not. Well, she wouldn't accept the company's decision, and she has been dogged in her determination to win. This week, the Supreme Court decided she was right.
I felt just like Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz, going before the mighty Wiz. And I expected to see these Supreme Court judges in the white powdered wigs and the long black robes. It was exciting. It was very exciting.
It has also been a traumatic experience for Lillian Garland, and an enlightening one.
At first, I thought it was just me that it was happening to. And as I began to talk to other women and find out that this was happening to thousands of women, and I said, something needs to be done about this.
The Savings and Loan had argued that men were not guaranteed their jobs when they took disability leave. The Supreme Court upheld a California law which gives a woman 4 months off to have a baby and then her job back again.
If you start creating preferential treatment for one group of people, even though you have a biological difference, it is going to have a chilling effect on the employment of women.
We cannot have equality without recognizing difference, that we have to get beyond the male model, that women do not have to twist a pregnancy into a hernia or pretend that it's a prostate, to have it treated as the medical disability it is minimally.
But other feminists argue against preferential treatment because they believe it enhances sexist stereotypes and works against women in the workplace.
I know this is not legal, but any employer will look at what's the likelihood of this person continuing. Will I spend the money to train someone when I know that I will be guaranteed that they will leave at a certain point? Sure, it has to affect your thinking. I would get from some people, well, don't you think you're taking this a little bit too far? Or I think women should be quiet and be silent and stay in the background. Or I've even had people tell me that women should just stay home and take care of babies.
A, B, C, D. Is that a D?
That is a D.
The job was not Lillian Garland's only loss. Unemployed and staying with a girlfriend because she could not afford a place of her own, she lost her daughter in a custody fight with the man who is now her ex-husband.
What starts with an E? Igloo. And
Lillian hopes that her daughter will understand someday what she told some teenagers outside the Supreme Court.
I'm fighting for you. I said, I'm fighting so that when you're grown, if you choose and if you decide to get married and have a baby, be a mother, you won't lose your job. You have a job to return to. And the little girl looked at me and she said, thank you.
Lillian Garland learned all about struggle and causes when she was very young. She grew up on a Pennsylvania farm. Her grandmother was a white chorus girl who married a black man.
Tonight we have Lillian Garland, who is the winner of the Supreme Court decision.
She is now 35, remarried, and she has become a messenger for a cause she believes in profoundly. She says in the final analysis, it really doesn't take any particular courage to speak up for what you believe is right.
I don't see us as little people. We are all giants. All you have to do is think it, believe it, act it, and be it.
And so we choose Lillian Garland, a woman whose initial decision to do something will surely have an effect on millions of other women in the workplace. And almost half the U.S. labor force is made up of women, vast numbers of whom will have babies during their working careers. We would remind you, in conclusion, that more than 100 countries now provide paid maternity leave. That's our report on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings. Have a good weekend. Good night.
From ABC, this has been World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Call it bizarre.
When are you going to tell me what's really going on?
I'll tell you when the time comes.
Dare to say it never happened.
It's metaphysical Twilight Zone mumbo jumbo.
To believe it, see it. Shirley MacLaine's true story, out on a limb Sunday.
We're right on the money.
The 1987 Dodge Aries K is right on the money because right now, for a limited time only, you can get low 3.9% financing or $500 cash back on any new front-wheel drive Dodge Aries K in stock. Get 3.9% financing or $500 cash back on Aries K 2-door, 4-door, or wagon. Only at the Dodge Boys.
We're right on the money.
Dodge, setting new standards of performance.
McDonald's tells me that under that big black bar is a special limited time price on a Big Mac. Gee, I wish I knew what it was. They just told me that if I showed it to the public, it could cause the largest outbreak of Big Mac attacks ever. Yep, it's right under there. Some incredible...